Awesome, thank you. Well, thank you all for attending today. This is the session, SharePoint List Formatting More Than Meets the Eye. We're going to have a lot of fun today looking at how we can transform in an Optimus Prime worthy way of our lists and within SharePoint and really make them pop. Hopefully you're going to gain something from the SharePoint List Formatting. Has been around for a while, but it's continually improving and progressing in its technologies. We're going to show you some of the original functionality, some of the new functionality. So we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We're going to start by showing some love for our sponsors. We know these are virtual events, but they still have costs associated to them. So we want to show some appreciation to our sponsors. I don't know, April, I'm a little more attuned to the TV logo there. I don't know, maybe it's just the purple and orange colors, but I got to say, I love that. It catches my eye. But again, thank you all attendees and sponsors. So let's show some appreciation for that. My name is David Warner. I am a MVP, a PNP team member, work for Catapult Systems. I'm a huge sports fan, as you can likely see from the pictures and the helmets behind me, but an even bigger fan of the community. So please don't let this be the only time that we collaborate and interact. My Twitter and email, Twitter handle and email address is right there. Would love to collaborate, answer any questions that you may have on this topic or others around getting involved in the community. Of course, I couldn't possibly do this session without my co-presenter, April Dunham. April, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everyone, April Dunham. I'm a former Microsoft MVP. I work at Microsoft now as the Power Platform Developer Advocate. Also really involved in the community and the PNP initiative and all of that. So I'm also a YouTuber. You can feel free to check out my channel if you want to learn more about the Power Platform and SharePoint List Formatting, and also really involved in the Power Addicts community as well.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, be sure to subscribe to her YouTube channel because she does a plethora of videos that are absolutely invaluable. So don't hesitate to do that. All right, let's talk about the agenda for today. We're going to talk about beginning with some out-of-the-box SharePoint list features, a little how it's changed in the modern experience versus the classic, especially if you're just starting to adopt that modern experience from that classic experience. We're going to talk about what the list formatting overview looks like, that landscape, and they're going to dive directly into the three predominant areas of list formatting: column formatting, view formatting, and form formatting. That's the newest sibling on the block, and we're going to show you how to take advantage of that. That provides a lot of cool powerful features for when your users are adding new data or editing existing data. And then we're going to look at advanced list formatting and how you can take advantage of some of the resources that we're going to show you we're using today. Now, I just wanted to mention from the forefront that there are a lot of snippets that we're going to use today. We're not going to go in depth on the exact structure of a list formatting definition because we don't want you to be overwhelmed or feel like you have to be qualified with code writing to take advantage of the list formatting definitions and features that are available to you. So if you can copy and paste, that's all you need. We'll show you some of those definitions so that you know we're not just selling smoke and mirrors or anything like that, but don't feel like you need to understand it completely. The resources are going to allow you to copy and paste those resources that are available to you, so don't hesitate to stay along for the entire ride. All right, and then at the end, we'll show you what list formatting transformed really looks like. So let's start out by talking about some of those out-of-the-box SharePoint list features. Now, what modern brings to us is a little different from what we had in Classic. When we were editing lists in Classic and we wanted to create a new item, edit an existing item, we had to feel like going between multiple pages, the entire page refreshed. No more of that in the modern experience. We have panels coming out from the side. We're able to edit in line. So we're not shuffling between multiple pages to be able to add and edit content to our lists. That it creates a single page app experience, which is much more interactive and usable than it was before. And in fact, we can even do things like adding list columns, resizing list columns, and at our disposal to get us started with list formatting is what's called custom formatting. It's a wizard-like experience in which we're able to provide some degree of styling just by pointing and clicking. And there's a great training way that you're able to utilize that to learn a little bit more about how that structure works by just making a change to the wizard and looking at it actually in the JSON, as it's called. We'll talk more about that later. Now, this is all great, but if you're familiar with transformers, we want that Optimus Prime-like experience. Just using out-of-the-box lists, well, it feels a little bit more like GoBots. I'm dating myself here, but if you remember when Transformers first came out in the, I guess, early to late 80s, they They were followed by a smaller brand called GoBots. They looked a little more plasticky. They seemed like they were coming out of a McDonald's Happy Meal box, but they were not quite as cool. And so SharePoint Lists as a modern experience is great, but it's not quite Optimus Prime great. So let's talk about list formatting as an overview. What is available to you? Well, we have that column formatting, right? And we talked about that a little bit here. That's the first one that's always been the most original and popular. You're able to take a single column, right? So when you think about a list, you've got a single column of data, and each of those columns of data you're able to do something with. You can control the elements, you can style them, you can modify the displayed content of the column. And I say modify the displayed because you're not actually going to change the actual content of the column. You're just going to modify the displayed output of the column. And to some degree, you can actually create functionality where functionality doesn't exist. And we'll talk about that. Now, view formatting, that's a little different in that you have your list and you've got your entire row of data, right? And so now we're able to affect the entire row, which means that we're able to override, just like with column formatting, styling, content of the entire list or row into some degree the functionality or the content. And then form formatting, which is exciting because that's going to allow us to change things like the header and footer formatting and the actual display of the columns when we're filling out new content. So what does this look like in a real world? What is an example of that? Well, just again, here's part of that overview. There is a basic list experience we are all used to. We've got columns of data, and it is nothing more than a title here and a Twitter handle, right? That's basic list data. With column formatting, we are able to override. So now we're taking something like that Twitter handle and we're replacing it from a visual perspective with the image. So we're not actually changing the content to an image, we're just changing the output to an image. And then view formatting allows us to override that entire row. So we see here that we're able to change things like a map and the image and a call to action. We see follow there means that we're able to click on it. We'll show you examples of that as well. But let's dive directly into column formatting, where we're going to hand it over to April, and she's going to start showing us some of the cool techniques we can take advantage of to get us started in list formatting.
Yeah, thank you, David. So as David kind of alluded to earlier here, we kind of, list formatting in general started off very much with column formatting. It's one of the easiest ways to get your foot in the door when using SharePoint list formatting. So there's two different flavors of column formatting that we have, similar to how there's different types of list formatting where we can customize our views and columns and forms. With column formatting specifically, we can approach this two different ways. We can use the custom formatting, which is a user-friendly wizard-like experience that we can take advantage of. Now, because it's user-friendly, we have some trade-offs. So with that user-friendliness, we have a little bit limited control of what we can do with the wizard versus what we can do if we say use the full-fledged version of column formatting. We can apply this to multiple different data types in our SharePoint columns, whether they're date, choice, Boolean, and all of that. But if we want to do a little bit more than what's available out of the box in custom formatting, we can do the full-fledged column formatting, which is the low-code JSON approach to be able to copy and paste JSON code to be able to have even more fine-grained control and do things like reference other column content, have various formatting options, like be able to inject Excel-like expressions to do cross-column calculations and comparisons, and even change the functionality of what the column is doing. We can do things like take a single line of text column within our SharePoint list and libraries and say turn those into an image or a hyperlink, and we'll show examples of all of these. So if we want the full capability and capacity here, we want to use the column formatting option. And again, don't get hung up on the fact that this uses JSON, because we're going to be showing just how we can copy and paste some samples that are already out there. Now, to get started, I do want to show a few demos, and let's start with the custom formatting first, because that is the easiest way to get your foot in the door with starting to use SharePoint list formatting. To demo this, I'm going to pull up a SharePoint list here that we have just a few columns. We have a title field, which is a single line of text, a date, a choice, and a Boolean. If we want to get started with custom formatting, all we have to do is select the drop down next to the column that we want to apply this on, and we'll see an option for column settings. Within column settings, you'll see an option here for format this column. That will take us to the SharePoint list formatting capability that we have for this particular column. So I've selected a date field type in our SharePoint list here, and you'll notice that we have two different options of conditional or format dates. Format dates is smart enough to know that this particular column type is a date column, and it's going to apply some filled in color shading on our column to be able to determine and highlight if this date is the current date, if it's after the current date, or if it's before the current date. So you see it automatically applied that. All I had to do was click this button, but if I want to override some of those styles, that's what this edit styles option is doing for us here. So I can see what it's doing is giving me these three buckets of is before today, and is after today. And it's applying some coloring here. So if I want to override any of these options, I can click on our format button next to each of these options, and we can change the fill color that is in here. So this is something that has actually been improved recently. As David mentioned, this is something that's constantly evolving and changing. We have more colors that we can fill in out of the box here than we did in previous months. So I can change, say if it is before today, I can change it to a dark red, so it's overdue. And if it is today, we can keep it maybe like a darker green. And then if it is after, we can do say maybe this blue color. So it instantly changes as soon as I click those options. We also have, we click on the style again, you might have noticed there's an option for more styles. So this goes additional, stuff that we can do here with the custom formatting. In addition to filling in and shading in the box, we can have control over what the font looks like. So we can bump up the font size if we need to, do the bold, italic, and all that stuff, and change the text color as well if we want it to be, if it had a lighter color and wanted to change it, or keep it white. And then one of the things that I love about this custom formatting is it's super simple to inject some icons in here. So if I wanted to really highlight if something is overdue, besides having it in red, maybe I want to put a warning kind of icon here next to that to really bring that to people's attention. So we have all these out-of-the-box icons with this that we can select from, and of course change the icon color if we need to as well, and the alignment from left to the right. So all of this is available to us, simple to use interface, point and click, and really easy to get started. And again, this works on any of the column types that we have. So if I want to do the same thing on this choice field, for example, I can go into format. And one of the ones that I love, the custom formats for the choice field specifically, is this choice pills option. So you might have noticed this if you used any of the Microsoft list templates that are out there. They use this particular list formatting, column formatting option pretty heavily, this choice fills. It's a nice little rounded effect. We have the exact same options here as we did when the date formats. We have different options. It's going to choose and show all of our different choices that we have defined, and we can override the styles here. So for transformers, that's good. So let's make this a nice bold green. And for GoBots, we might want to change that to say like a gray or something, because that's a little bit boring. And then we can have all those same different styles here as well. Do like a thumbs up or thumbs down, adding that to that. So all available to us on all these different column types that we can use. But what if we want to take this a step further? What if we want to do more than this shading and adding in some of those, pre-canned icons? What if we want to do something else? And maybe some of the things that we talked about referencing other columns in our column formatting. Well, that's where we want to use the full-fledged version of column formatting and inject that JSON code. To do this, I'm going to switch over to this other list that we have here that has just really three simple columns. We have a single line of text, and we have two numeric columns. So if we look at the settings, these are just number column types with an automatic number of decimal places. What if I want to be able to compare this before number and this after number and see, is the after number higher or lower than the before number? So to do that, I need to be able to see what this value is and do some Excel-like comparisons. We can do this with our custom formatting and a simple bit of JSON that is available out there in the PMP repo for free for you to use today. So we'll take a look at this JSON. Again, don't get bogged down on what exactly is going on here. The only thing that I did want to point out is really how Excel-like this actually is. So all we're going to do is do an if, similar to what we would do in Excel, and we're going to take these column names, so we're going to compare the column after to the column before, and we're going to see, is that greater than, is after greater than before? If so, we want to show an icon called trending up. If it is less than, we want to show an icon called trending down. So it's really as simple as that. We're going to do those Excel-like expressions, and to use it, really the magic here is all we have to do is copy this sample that again is out there for us to use, and we'll go back into that same section where we did our custom formatting into column settings on this column and format. But instead of using one of these out-of-the-box custom formats, you'll see an option here at the bottom left for advanced mode. This is going to open up a different panel with an empty text box here where we can paste in our JSON code to override this. So if I replace what is in there, and you notice we have a save and a preview. So when you're trying some of these out, if you want to see what it looks like first before applying it where everyone else sees it, you can use that nifty little preview button. It'll show you a live preview of what's going on before you apply it, and it's applicable for everyone that's using the list. So I can see if I save this now, as soon as I did that, we have this nice up and down color-coded arrow here based off of if the value is higher or lower. So in this case, before is 50, after is 55. So we have a green up arrow letting us know that this value is trending up, and then same thing if it's lower, letting us know that it's trending down. So that's super cool. We were able to do some comparisons and get a reference to a different column in here in this column formatting. What if we want to take this even a step further though? What if instead of just knowing visually if this value is up or down, higher or lower than the before, what if we want to know by what percent or what number is this higher? So in this case, I want to know easily, is this 5 points higher, 5 points lower? Well, we can do just a little bit of tweak to that sample that we have here and add just a little bit more code into the JSON to be able to actually get what that difference is numerically between those two values. So we can do the same thing here with getting the arrows and, if is it trending up, is it trending down? And the only difference we're going to do is add a little section after that where we compare the values and we subtract them from each other. So we're going to subtract the after value from the before if it's higher, and we're going to subtract the before from the after if it's lower. And that's really all we're doing. Again, very Excel-like here, and really similar if we're used to Excel formulas. So if we copy this sample now and go back into that same section here where we had pasted in that JSON code originally, and save it now, you see we have this same arrow, but now to the right of it, we're seeing that this is up 5 points, below 5 points and all of that on each of these. So, and it's in this case here, another thing to point out is it's the same value, so it's ignoring that, right? So we have all of that logic built in with this JSON code to not only compare values, but to do formulas and expressions and math logic against the two values to get the difference. So it really shows the power of what we can do here with column formatting. Now, I mentioned earlier when we were talking about column formatting, though, that right now all we did is we pretty much injected other information into this column, and we've kept, what's there. But what if we want to do something else? Maybe we have a list like this where we have social profiles, and I have a single line of text field here that is showing someone's Twitter handle. So that's all this is. If we look at its column settings, is a single line of text field. Well, what if instead of showing their Twitter handle, maybe I want to go out and actually get their profile picture from their Twitter handle and show that profile picture here instead. That shows how we can really take what the type of column is and transform it into something else. So to showcase this, let's look at the sample, and you'll kind of notice that each of these samples are getting a little bit longer as you start doing a little bit more complex things. So in this case, we're changing the behavior of what this column is doing. So we need to transform and wrap this value in an image tag to really transform that. And we're going to just reference the column contents with this current field object, and we're going to turn that into an image. But again, don't get too bogged down on this. All these samples are available. Now to apply this, I'm going to go back into those column settings and format this column, and we'll go into our advanced mode again. And we're going to paste this sample in here, click save. And you see when I do that, there you go, it just takes a minute for all those images to pop up there. Now that text value went away and it was replaced with an image. And when I hover over the image, you see it's still persisting the text value as a tooltip when I hover over each of these. So that's pretty cool. We just completely changed what this column is doing and how it's acting. Now, to David's point earlier, we didn't change the data that is stored in this column. This column still contains a single line of text value, which has our Twitter handles. All we did was change from the front end what this looks like and how it behaves. Now, to kind of pull this full circle before we move on to some list formatting and view formatting here, I want to share one more thing, how we can take this same thing, but make this a clickable link to actually go and open up their Twitter profile. So we can turn this into a hyperlink quite easily by just wrapping this in a hyperlink and a tag and passing in the current field again to Twitter with their Twitter handle. So if I copy this sample and we'll go back to format and we'll replace what's in there with a little bit of additional code there to wrap that in that a tag and click save. Now it doesn't seem like it really changed anything right now, but if we hover over it now, you see we have a pointer. So now if I go and click on, say, Bo's profile here, that is opening up a hyperlink. Now we can see his Twitter profile and easily open that up. So this shows all the power here of everything we can do with column formatting, from doing math comparisons to really completely changing what we're able to do. Now with that, I'm going to turn it back over to David, though, because he's going to show how we can take these same concepts and apply it to our SharePoint views.
All right, awesome. Thank you, April. So that's some super cool stuff. Hope you found that valuable for column formatting. Now let's talk about view formatting. It's all list formatting today. Let's talk about view formatting and what the overview is there. So it still uses JSON. We're still utilizing that experience, right? So don't get hung up with that, though. Again, we got resources. So it is low code. You're not having to worry too much about writing like JavaScript methods or anything. Now, view formatting does come with a limited wizard experience. It didn't used to. So again, to echo what April had said, there's constant improvement being made to this platform or area of the platform. Where something didn't exist before, it now exists. It exists now, and so it's continuing to be improved upon. We see the investment continuing to be made by Microsoft. Now, in this case, you can override the entire item or row, right? So that's the entire item or row content. You can control the HTML, the look and feel, but no JavaScript, which is a blessing and a curse, because you don't have to worry about feeling like I have to be this big JavaScript developer to take advantage of some of the view formatting opportunities that's available to you. So let's dive directly into that demo and let's see what we can do with view formatting. We're going to stay in the theme of our social profiles and content contributors. In this case, we are looking at a little bit more data than we had before, right? So we still have that name, we still have the Twitter. Now we're looking, though, at location information. So we're looking at things like country and state if you're in the United States, or we're looking at province if you're in Canada, right? Now, these are only 2 countries with geographic locations within each of those countries, so it makes it a little easier. Imagine if this was much more worldwide, but even with just these 2, it can be a little confusing to look at this information because you see holes in all of this data, and it can be a little distracting. Not only that, but when we go to fill out the form, which April's going to show you here in a little bit, it can be a little annoying because when you go to create a new element or item, you see that it's asking for country and state and province. What happens if we select United States? What if we don't know that province is only applicable to Canada? So we're going to show some cool stuff there. April's going to highlight that for us a little bit later. But how can we take this experience and make it look better in and of itself? Well, with a view, as April had showed, with a column, you go directly to the column settings and format this column. We know that view information is located up here, right? And remember that each list can have multiple views. So that means that each view can have its own view formatting definition, which means that you can make multiple dashboard-like experiences all within the scope of a single list, which is pretty awesome. If you apply a column formatting definition and then apply a view formatting definition, that is okay. The column formatting definition will persist. It will live in that column, but the view formatting definition will override it, meaning it won't replace it. It just will overwrite it. So if you were to take off the view formatting definition later, that column formatting customization would still exist and persist. So one little tip there. To engage in that formatting of the view, you simply pull down your view formatting or your view drop down here and select Format Current View. Now, we talked about how it has a limited wizard experience. So we see that here, additional row styles, or excuse me, alternating row styles, conditional formatting. We can take advantage of that, right? So the same functionality that April was showing you is available here on a list level or a view row level. Not quite as robust, but again, it's trying to provide some degree of customization to the view. But obviously, there could be a plethora and a very wide spectrum of content in that view or in that list it doesn't know exactly what to do with. So the total power really comes when you go directly into that advanced mode. We see here it's already added a little bit because I applied those rows, alternating rows. So we mentioned this is a good learning technique. You can use the wizard to create an effect, right? So you could go in and make changes, and then you can go directly to advanced mode to see how it actually applied those changes in the JSON. So it's a good learning opportunity. For us, though, we really want to override this and make it a great looking experience because we don't necessarily want to include all this additional information or blank information to say if it's not applicable. So we're going to select all and override here, and I'm just going to paste in again. These are resources that are available to you. We'll show you how to access them later, and I'm going to save that. And we're going to see now what it's done is it's combining a few different techniques that we've already seen. So it's taking that Twitter URL and using it to go find, or Twitter ID, and using it to go find the picture. We're taking the title, and then we're creating that presentation layer faux functionality, right? There is no actual functionality living in the list. We have created and fabricated that functionality because we're able to generate, as we see right here, we're able to generate that URL within our list formatting definition. So now when I click on Chris, it's opening up in a new tab, and it takes us directly to Chris's information, and we're able to see that and follow him if we like to. Now, what's missing, though, is the actual location, right? And we could have absolutely just placed it here. We could have wrote, the location USA, or in the case of Seb, Montreal, Canada, and that would have been fine. But we wanted to show you how you can up the ante even more by connecting to outside services that will provide back certain images, much like we're doing with Twitter, but in this case, we're going to use a Maps API via Google. And we're going to just simply provide, if it's Canada, right, we're going to provide the province. If it's a state, then we're going to provide, or if it's a country, USA, then we're going to provide the state. Now, when I save that, now it actually goes out and live grabs the thumbnail from the geographic location. Now, we're not coming down to the address level or anything, but we are providing a general location, which makes it a little easier to see where in the world they are. In fact, it is interactive. So if I were to click on Hugo, he's in the Toronto area. Ontario is quite a large, vast area, but it still highlights and shows where in the world is Hugo, right? It's like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Where in the world is Hugo Bernier? We're able to find him by just using list formatting, which is pretty cool. So that is very powerful, and it's not requiring any JavaScript. Now let's up the ante a little more. April talked about comparative calculations and mathematical calculations and conditional calculations. We absolutely can do that on a view formatting scale as well. So in this particular example, we've got 4 quarters of grades. Right now, if think back into school, we would get a numeric grade each quarter. As the quarters went on, the teacher would average them and conditionally assign a letter grade based on the number. And that number to the letter grade condition was different from teacher to teacher, right? Some would say, well, if you got 100, you got an A+. Anything less than that's just an A. But some would say, you know what? If you get a 99, that's an A+ too. I'm okay with that. That's conditional logic. It's based on a condition that is different from teacher to teacher. So what we'd like to do here is we'd like to take these 4 numbers that are literally just nothing but 4 numbers, and we'd like to make it a little easier to comprehend what they mean from a letter grade and an average perspective, because we can certainly figure that out. If we're our students, we could say, you know what, you take these numbers, and if you want to know what your average grade is, then you have to go do the math, and then here's a table for you to compare what that final number is and what your letter grade will be. List formatting, though, allows us to automate all of that. And this is just 4 grades or 4 numbers representing 4 grades. This could be financial data. It could be a weekly or monthly collection of columns. It could be anything you want from a numeric perspective. We're just simply using 4 grades because it makes an easier example. So I'm going to go in and format the current view. I'm going to go directly to the advanced mode, and I'm going to paste in my definition. And this one's a little long, right? We see here it's 522 lines. Don't let that intimidate you. Obviously, there's a lot of verboseness in the way it's breaking out all those brackets. And it's largely repetitive because we're doing the same step over and over and over. We're just adding an additional column each time. So when I save that, we see here now what it's done is it's added a visual, easier way for us to comprehend the state of our grade. Not only has it taken and displayed the actual grade for each quarter, so we see that there, but it's also now doing the automated averaging for us. Right, so we're able to see what the average grade is across the same quarters. And it's also doing that conditional logic. We're able to say, using simple Excel-like expressions, if it's a specific thing, such as we see here, as April had pointed out, if it's greater than a 99 or equal to a 99, it's going to get an A+. If it's greater than or equal to a 90, it's going to get an A, and we could adjust that, right? If I wanted to say 98 is good enough, you're going to get an A+ on a 98, I could change it, and away I would go, and that would be sufficient. But we can see here now we've been able to override that presentation layer and make that so much more comprehensible and enjoyable and quickly identifiable for our users, simply using JSON and view formatting. No real custom development going on here, simply using resources that are available to you right now that you could walk away and copy and paste with, and we'll give you those at the end of the session. But wait, there's more. Call now or after this call, and we'll include form formatting. So I'm going to hand the mic back to April, and she's going to discuss and show us how we can take advantage of editing or formatting our forms for a better editing and experience.
Yeah, thank you, David. Pretty excited about form formatting. It's probably, I guess, the newest kid on the block here with list formatting and what we can do. So just an overview of some of the functionality that we can do with form formatting. Again, this is going to be that low-code JSON approach that we can take. We don't have the wizard-like experience that we do, say, with view and custom column formatting with form formatting right now. But some of the things that we can do is overriding your SharePoint new edits and display forms, adding in things like headers and footers. We can do multi-column layouts. We can show or hide columns, things like that. Typical things that you might have traditionally had to turn to another solution to do, like maybe Power Apps, for example, customizing your forms in SharePoint with that, just to do a simple multi-column or add a header or footer. For those scenarios, Power Apps is probably a little bit too verbose of a solution just for those simple scenarios. So now we can use our form formatting to handle those scenarios, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how we do this. Now, to get started, I'm going to start with that social profiles list that David was just showing us and how he did this awesome view formatting here. Now, one of the things he did point out is when we go to add a new item in here, we have country and then we have state and province. Now, ideally from a user experience, when someone is adding in a new item here, we really don't want to show state and province both. We only want to show state if they choose the United States as their country option, and we only want to show province if they choose Canada, right? That would be the ideal user experience, to only show the data that they actually need to enter. So how do we do this? Well, we can use some of the new capabilities with form formatting to tackle this conditional logic of showing and hiding fields based off of other fields' values. Now, to do this, we'll actually go where we are right now, which is in the new item form. And you might notice, in addition to these options here for save, cancel, and copy, at the far right-hand side, we have this format option that's a drop-down. And we have 3 different options. So this is where we would traditionally go to customize our list with Power Apps, which again, that's a great choice if you need to do some really complex logic, like lots of show and hides with more complex logic than just a simple yes or no, or maybe you want to change, the values and just something a little bit more complex. Power Apps is a great choice for that. But what we want to do to be able to show or hide conditionally these columns is go to the Edit Columns option here at the top. And what this is going to do, it's going to show all the columns that we have. And not only can we show or hide these conditionally with some code like I'm going to show, but we can also uncheck to completely hide them from our form if we want to change it this way, or we can drag and drop as well and reorder these. So this is your one-stop shop to completely change how your form populates and is displayed. Now, we want to show or hide state based off of the country that is selected. So let's start with province here. If we want to do this conditional formatting, you'll choose these 3 dots next to the field that you want to show or hide, and you'll see an option for Edit Conditional Formula. When we do that, it's going to pop open a dialog box where we can paste in some formula here. Now, this formula is going to be very similar to if you've ever used calculated fields in SharePoint before. It's a very similar formula, and again, very similar to what we do in Excel. So if you notice here, I have a simple if statement typed out where I say if country, which is the name of our field, equals Canada. Then I just want to set this to true, otherwise false. So show this field if country is Canada, otherwise keep it hidden. So I can copy that very simple formula, paste that in here, click save. And you notice as soon as I do that, that this is grayed out. That lets me know visually that I do have a conditional formula applied. And I want to do this exact same thing, add a conditional formula on the state field. And instead of my condition being if it's Canada, I want to say if it's United States, set the visibility to true, otherwise set it to false. And we'll paste that in here, click save. And we need to click save one more time to apply these column changes on our form. And I'm going to close out. And now if you see when I go back into the new form, we're only seeing right off the bat here three different fields. So we have the title, Twitter, and then now country. Since I don't have anything selected, neither state or province are showing. But now if I go in and I select Canada, province shows. And if I select United States, province is hidden and state shows. So that's a very simple example of what we can do here with this form formatting and some of that conditional logic to dynamically show or hide our fields. Very powerful functionality where we, again, don't have to resort to Power Apps to do anymore. Now, that's one area that we can do, but what if we want to take it even another step farther? So to kind of show how we can inject our headers or footers or do multi-column layouts, I want to switch over to this list where we have lots of columns going on here. So if we click new, you'll see that this is actually a pretty long form for asset management. So we have lots of information that needs to be collected, like the asset information, the status, details about the asset itself, like the manufacturer and model. And then we have additional details about when it was purchased and who's currently owning that item and what condition it's in. So if I'm looking at this data, there's a few, kind of logical areas that I might want to group this by. So I might want to have asset information. I might want to have owner information, for example. We can apply form formatting to do that in addition to having a header and a footer. So to do this, you might notice we're here in the new item again, and in that dropdown that we looked at earlier to add the columns, we had a different option right below that called Configure Layout. This is where we can go and apply that logic to add headers, footers, or control what shows up here in our form. So when we do that, you'll see on the right-hand side, it pops open this panel, and the first option we have is Apply Formatting To. This is where we'll choose where we want to apply this formatting. We're injecting this into the header of our form, into the body, or into the footer. So let's start off with a simple example of, say, a header option. So I'm going to choose that, and we have this box where we can paste in our JSON code. Let's go back to VS Code, and we'll take a look at this option here for header. So you see this again, these are getting a little bit more complex the more that we do, but what I want to do in the header is have some kind of visual way that I can easily see what the status of this item is prominent there in the header, in addition to explain, kind of surfacing up some of the most pertinent information that we have. So I'm doing again our Excel-like functions here where I'm checking to see what the status is. And based off of that status, I'm going to do some color coding. So if it's available, I want to have this box be green, if it's in use, blue, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to copy this so we can see what it's going to look like when we apply it. So I'm going to paste this into my dialog box here with header applied, and we're going to click save. Now nothing shows up right away because we need to click out of our form and go back into it to really see these changes. So now let me make sure it actually saved. Sometimes it doesn't. There we go. So let me paste that in one more time. Sometimes it takes a minute to actually save there. And oh, of course, you can't have a good demo without having some issues here. What's a good demo without having that? So let's segue. I'm just curious now to see if this is just the header that's causing some issues or if it's everything. So let's segue to, we want to customize the body of this. I want to add in, pretty simply, just some headings so that I can organize this data that's in the form a little bit better. So to do that, I have this form body sample. You can use a property called sections, and we can easily group our columns in our form into different sections. So I want a section called info, where I have these particular fields surfaced up. I want a section called details with all of these fields in it as far as the serial number, order, and then I want to have an owners and a status section so that I can kind of easily manage this form and break it out into bite-sized pieces. So we're going to go in here, we're going to go back into the configure layout, and we'll choose the body option for this to customize what's here in physically where the fields are stored. And we're going to paste and we're going to save that and hope the demo gods are in my favor here and are going to apply this. So I'm going to give it a refresh to see if that's causing any issues. There we go. Cool. Thank you. So you see, as soon as I applied that, now we have a header for info, and I'm surfacing up these fields, and it automatically, because of what I had in that sample, is expanding this to a 4-column layout. So what did I do here? Well, I reduced scrolling significantly. That's a good user experience thing that we can do, reducing the infinite scrolling that we have. So now that I apply this, I can see all the different sections of information that I need to have with the corresponding columns. I can easily fill all that in. And this was this very simple sample, 39 lines. All we do is define the sections. We have the section header types and then what fields we want to show. So that's a very easy way to get started with this form formatting. Now let's see if this will agree with me, and we'll show how to do a footer, because that's another thing that could be cool. What if someone has a question about this particular asset and you want to be able to say, take them to a Teams channel or a Teams chat to get their questions answered? Well, this sample shows how we can inject a footer into this form, which is just a div that has a link here at the bottom that says need help, contact the help desk, and it's going to start a Teams chat with this shortcut, okay? So I'm going to copy this sample. We're going to go back into that format option and configure layout on our new form. And in the apply formatting, we'll say footer, and we'll paste that in, okay? Click save. We'll close out of that. Again, I'm going to do the refresh because that seemed to work for me last time. We'll click new. And there you go. So in addition, we can mix and match these. We can have headers, footers, and customize our form body all at once. So at the bottom here, you see we have this new little hyperlink that I just added. And if I click that, that will try to open up Teams so that I can have a chat with this user. So I can say use the web app here. It'll actually launch Teams and start a chat with help desk for me. So really cool experience here that we can have with the footer. And I'll just quickly, since maybe it's working with me now, I'm going to try to recopy that header that I was showing there. To close this out, we'll go back to configure header. We'll paste that in. We'll close. We'll refresh. We'll see if that's agreeing with me now. I guess not. It just doesn't like the header. Not sure why. We'll look at that. Who knows what it could be. But at least you got to see some of the really important pieces of how we can really customize the form and manage that and add a footer. So really powerful functionality that we have here for form formatting. So with that, I do want to talk about how we can take it further. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to David and talk about how we can take this even to the next level.
All right, thank you. We are going to share back out because Teams is a little slow today. I think it's wanting the long weekend as much as everybody else too.
Yep.
All right. Yes, so taking it further is going to include a bunch of resources available to you. So let's start talking about those resources. We promised you that you would not have to feel like you have to write all this from scratch, and you do not. There is a number of resources. So the first one is the Patterns and Practices community has a list formatting repository. You can get there by going to this URL, aka.ms/list-formatting. There are well over 100 samples available to you in these two repos, from column formatting to view formatting. Now, wanted to kind of point out that you saw us doing this. We created a Twitter experience where we took the Twitter image and displayed it in the column, and then we did the same thing in view. So realize that in many cases, when you find a column formatting example, you could apply that within the view formatting. So there's sometimes interchangeable, a little mix and match, so take advantage of that. And you can get to both of those by going to directly this URL, or if you wanted to go individually to GitHub, you could use those URLs as well. In addition, we have some community calls. April, tell us a little bit about these community calls.
Yeah, we have great community calls for list formatting specifically. We have our general development call that we have. We highlight every time we have these calls, list formatting samples here. Chris Kent does a great job at showing the latest and greatest of what we have with list formatting, in addition to Power Platform stuff we cover in that call as well. So if you're a Power Platform person like myself and interested in that side of low-code, definitely check that out. So give regular tips, regular Power Platform tips as well. It's every other Thursday at 7 a.m. Pacific. And there, if you can't catch it live because of time zones or whatever work issues, you can catch that recorded and we're put up on the PNP YouTube channel.
Yes, absolutely. And we have even more tools available for you. We wanted to highlight some specifically. The SP Formatter is a tool that'll plug in directly to your browser and allow you to kind of use some point and click to create additional functionality and help assist with the creation of that JSON as well. HTML to Formatter here will actually take some HTML you create, again, through a wizard, convert it to the JSON. You kind of see that happening here and available to you. And then if you like iconography, we all know we love iconography. Flyken is a service that was created by Chris that allows you to tap into some of the SVG iconography that can be included in list formatting because it does support SVG iconography, but the out-of-the-box icons may not meet your needs. And so he's created a whole collection of other icons that you can take advantage of to use, and you can see that some of them available here are different colors, variations, outlined, solid, etc. So take advantage of those. Now we really wanted to highlight how you can transform the list formatting. So far, what we've shown is that really everything that you're doing within your list formatting is living within the list, right? And it used to be that in the classic experience, sending someone to the list to consume data always felt like ripping the curtain from in front of the wizard. You didn't want that to happen. You wanted them to live within the pages that you created for them to consume the data. But that meant a lot more development and programming. And what we've shown now may allude to that you have to send them to the list to consume all that wonderful styling. Not the case though. You are able to take the list formatting that you create and the list web part, which is out of the box, and create a pseudo-like dashboard. And then that's really when you get to that state of more than meets the eye. So let me just quickly demo that for you. It's going to be real brief. What I've got here is a page, and what I have on this page is an exact copy of both web parts, right? So I've got a list web part. Each of them is pointing at the social profiles, pulling back the view all items, which is where I applied that particular list formatting definition to. But because we said that views could each have their own list formatting definition associated to them, imagine if I had like an American view and then a Canadian view or another country view. So now on a page, I could create a view for each country that then would show just the participants from that particular country. So you almost are creating a contact dashboard that is grouped by country, and here I'm showing them side by side because that's the section. We could show one column here and just stack them as you see is happening here, but by doing two columns I'm able to have them side by side, which works. And again, because I can actually include additional sections here, perhaps I want to include the list web part and I want to pull back those student grades and display that as well. So now you can see them all stacking on top of one another, and we're able to utilize that functionality. Now there's another component that you can take advantage of. Since we have a few minutes, I'll just highlight that real quick. And that is something that April, Hugo, and myself all worked on together. Is available through PNP. Is called the Enhanced List Formatting Web Part. If you add this on the page, it allows you to actually inject CSS directly on the page to override and perhaps animate some of the experiences that you have created for your list formatting definition. Now, again, you may say, well, wait a second, isn't this kind of going against Microsoft recommendation? Isn't that something that they don't recommend because you're now touching things that you don't own? The list web part we didn't create, that's out of the box. But the list formatting definition we did create. And we're able to include custom CSS style names within that list formatting definition that we can then use CSS scoped to only this page via this web part to override. So we're able to take advantage of some animated experiences there as well. Now, this may be intimidating to you. There may be a lot going on here. We just want to share real quickly, there is an experience that you can take advantage of called the Patterns and Practices Sharing is Caring program. April is a member of that as well as I. And these are live hands-on sessions that will walk you through a number of techniques, a wide spectrum. Perhaps you're working on some list formatting definitions and you'd like to share them with the community. Like all those resources that we gave you to take advantage of, that was all provided by the community. So if you're creating some really cool stuff, we invite you to share that back, but you have to go through GitHub, and that may feel like it's a little intimidating using terms like fork and pull request and blame. And you're like, I just want to give you a list formatting, dude. I don't know what's going on here. Well, we have sessions here that will walk you through how to contribute. So these are live guidance sessions where we will walk you through hands-on how to take advantage of some of the resources and contribute back to those resources, where we'll actually provide credit and celebrate the contributions you make. But if you're curious about list formatting specifically, I wanted to highlight that we're having an AMA on October 5th. This is an opportunity for you to come ask any question you want. If you'd like to participate, it is going to include Chris is going to be our guest of honor. He handles a lot of those repos, and so we want to invite you to come ask some questions, get involved, collaborate with others in the community. Again, you can get there by going to aka.ms// sharing is caring. Can't speak this morning. So please take advantage of that, and we would love to see you get more involved in the community. With that, we would like to thank you all for attending. Again, on behalf of April, we really appreciate the time you take, especially on a Saturday, to come and learn more about the technologies that we all love.
Okay.
Awesome.
Guys, what an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
I was so excited at the beginning, and I forgot to completely to introduce myself. Sorry. I'm Fatima Blancas from Mexico. Where are you broadcasting from?
I'm in Los Angeles, Northern LA.
Yeah. Yep, and I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I miss the in-person events, but these kind events online bring us closer, and I love that. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Hope you meet you in person next year, at least.
Yeah, we do too. It'd be great to get back together.